So let's get started. Today we are going to work with the Radial filter tool. But before we start using it, I want to reduce the overall contrast for our photo to about -63. Let's close the tonal curve and basic windows and open Radial filter. First, let's reset all settings that I tampered with by double-clicking the left mouse button. And now, pressing the mouse button, I stretch our radial filter. Select the Show Selected Mask overlay box to see how the radial filter affects the photograph. Right now, it's acting outside the circle of the radial filter. If I check the invert box, the effects appear inside the circle of the same radial filter. Let's uncheck the bottom box to make the red color disappear. I would like to brighten up the face by adding a little exposure, about 0.4. Great, we took care of this radial filter. Now let's make a new one. I want everything around our model's face to be a little cooler. I can do that with the white balance by dragging the temperature slider a bit towards the blue. Let's keep it at -10. Lastly, I want to reduce the diameter of our filter a bit. Look what we got. Our model's face is very contrasting, while the surroundings, as well as the background, look a little hazy. I will add a bit of contrast so that the face, foreground, and the background match in terms of light and tones. This will also add a little volume. I think +14 would be great. Also, let's reduce the highlights to have more texture in the lighter tones of the hair and shoulder. That will do. We won't need any other tools for this particular picture. But before we move to Photoshop, we need to synchronize our Lightroom settings with a few more photos, as we will need them to correct some things in this shot. For example, this glare on the face. We'll also need a photo with a lantern because in our original image, it is too low and not visible. So we'll need to create a little collage. Okay, I'm on the original photo. Press Command or Control on PC and highlight the other two photos we'll be needing. After that, I click Synchronize. A menu opens up where I can choose what I want, which boxes to check or not. I'm going to leave everything as it is except for the crop settings and press Synchronize. Now all of these pictures match my color settings completely. I'll just adjust the exposure a bit. We'll cut out the lantern from this photo and insert it into our main image. But before we do that, we'll need to correct it a little. So let's create a radial filter once again. Check the invert box so that the effects apply inside the circle. Reduce the exposure a bit and raise the white balance to about +26. And let's reduce the highlights to make the lantern texture more pronounced. Now let's go to the Library tab. Highlight all three of our photos and export them to Photoshop. Right-click on the photo to open a menu. Select the Edit in Adobe Photoshop tab. In the pop-up window, click on Render using Lightroom. All files are converted to TIFF format and will immediately open in Photoshop. In Photoshop, a window pops up that says, "The document has embedded color profile that does not correspond to the current RGB working," which means that the software is offering alternative processing methods. So what should we do? We have to choose the first option in order to use the built-in profile instead of the software's workspace. I click OK, and all three photos open in Photoshop.